Are you someone that struggles with what I call information overload? Policies and practices are constantly changing, laws are changing, regulations and government policies are changing, and the piles of information that you just have to absorb, comprehend, share with people just grows and grows. Are you putting in 12-hour days, 5 and sometimes 6 days a week? Bringing work home sometimes on weekends or evenings after a long, exhausting day? Well, that's what I call information overload. And how do we survive in the world of internets and webs and TV and media and journals and magazines in a way that we are able to utilize the information that's coming to us in a global economy in an effective way that makes a difference in the outcomes and the competitive advantages that we can achieve? That's what this is all about. And my experience actually with this started when I was a senior leader executive at IBM. And faced with government regulations, import and export regulations, currency exchanges, and how we were going to get monies in and out, products in and out of different countries, stacks of policies and procedures and laws and rules that were constantly changing. Sometimes I had to read them, sometimes I had to write them. Sometimes I had to present them to my front line, sometimes I had to present them to my senior executive team. I called it the fight for survival. How was I going to be able to do all of this, be effective at my work, and get the results that my senior executives were demanding that we needed to achieve in a global competitive market? Wow. Fortunately for me, my CFO happened to see a catalog that was being offering a seminar on creativity and how you could absorb information in the information overload world and utilize that information in a productive way. That seminar was being given by Tony Buzan, one of the world's renowned experts on human intelligence and creativity. And so after spending 3 days at that seminar, I came to realize there were skills that I could learn. There were tools that I could utilize in my day-to-day operations that could actually help me absorb this information, process it in an effective way, get my frontline folks engaged in utilizing their creativity and helping me put together presentations in 1 or 2 page mind maps that I could then present to my senior executives, get things approved, and move into what I call the execution or action stage of work. That was so empowering and transformational to me that I eventually got to travel and train these skills across the world and wound up with a President's Award for Teaching Excellence and an IBM Chairman's Award for Leadership Excellence. Well, I left IBM after almost 28 years of a career and started the Dino Consulting Group. So I am now the president of my own consulting company and also the founder of the USA Memory Championship. And what I've learned over these 26 years of business is how you can take tools and skills with memory and mind mapping and bring that to executives to lighten the load that they carry on their shoulders and help them be more productive and actually get their personal life back on track. Sometimes when I'm talking to executives and I sit in their office and listen to some of their challenges and you see stacks of documents or approval signatures that they need to sign on to, policies that they need to review and revise. I can almost see myself sitting on the other side of the table and putting myself back into my IBM leadership position and feel that empathy for them, but more importantly, feel that I have a roadmap or I have a way of helping them overcome it. I always remember meeting with a senior vice president of sales and marketing at a major airline company and sitting with the senior executive, frustrated by how do I absorb all of the changes that were taking place in the airline industry? How do I get that out to my regional sales directors and vice presidents? How do I engage the frontline sales team in realizing the changes that they were going to need to make? And how do I grow the revenue in a constantly growing market that was demanding we reduce prices as opposed to the ability to increase them? How do I move people from the back of the plane to the front of the plane? How do I get all of this done in an ever-changing market that was constantly being competitive, and we were entering into price wars and competitive challenges? We sat down together, we spent several hours, we designed what I would define as his very first mind map. And that mind map was able to take what was going on up in here in his mind and putting it onto paper in a holistic way that enabled him to see exactly what his strategies and what his business plan was, how he could communicate that to his team, and how he could then mobilize them, inspire them, engage their creativity in ways of developing new market channels and, more importantly, increasing the revenue. The good news, took us a few years. Some of the obstacles, people looking at these one-page documents with icons and pictures on it, clearly not, are we in grammar school again? Are we learning how to color and draw? It's a new way of thinking. We're used to doing 12, 15-page PowerPoint decks, and now all of a sudden we're looking at a one-page document that basically has got the business plan and the company strategy all on one page and document. Overcoming those, it took a little bit of time. It took a little bit of re-education of people. It took them to see a new way of looking at holistic information and not having to go through line by line on PowerPoint slides, but the results were clearly warranted and clearly worthwhile. $500 billion later, or $500 million later, it was clearly worthwhile. $500 million of additional revenues over a 3-year period of time. Put this airline on a whole different plane and a whole different growth pattern in terms of what can do. Had the opportunity of working with Con Edison, a utility company in New York City after the 9/11/2001 tragedies that we had. How do they absorb a project plan? How do they put together all the things that were necessary that they needed to get federal regulation and agencies to approve? And how could they do it fast enough in a way that could get those approvals, and the workers could then get to go back and redo the work that they needed to do, put the new power lines, get the substations together, put all their pieces. How could we do that? Fortunately, we had a couple of senior executives there that had been through mind mapping, and we were able to sit down together, and we were able to put together some of the core elements of what needed to be done on one-page project plans and action plans that enabled them to then communicate to the regulatory organizations, get their approval on things, and execute action plans that were able to get things to happen. I'm thinking of working with a customer service organization. They were looking at improving their customer satisfaction results. How could you get customer satisfaction results in a way where customers and unhappy clients could immediately communicate with you in a way that you would get the core issues of what was frustrating to them so that the company could learn how to better improve their service levels? So how could you get people to talk in such an open and candid way? I always remember one of the senior executives say, you know what, pre-formatting these onto a mind map allowed people to talk to me in a way where I could just fill in these different branches of information and see the whole picture. And what the customers or the complainants would feel is, you listened to me, you heard what I had to say. And so I've worked on this over a number of years in getting senior leaders to be able to absorb more information quicker, be able to take that and distill it into bite-sized pieces, and then actually utilize it in communicating to their frontline staffs, to their directors and managers, and engage people's creative problem-solving process in a way of how do we creatively problem-solve in ways where people are engaged in wanting to share their ideas and helping the company meet its critical goals, strategies, and executing its business plans. It's always interesting when you first sit down with an executive and you start showing him colored pencils, or maybe on a laptop you can start drawing branches that have different colors on it, and then you look for icons that you can attach to those branches, which brings me back to a simple lesson. A picture's worth 1,000 words. So if we could find what those pictures were, and we could put them on simple branches that we call a map of a mind, wouldn't that help the brain tap into its infinite creative powers and be able to then help bring solutions to the table that much quicker? Who would argue with doing any of those things? Engaging people, getting their creative thought processes inspired, enthused, and engaged, and then having them go out and execute plans that they actually developed, which then created what I call buy-in and ownership at every level in the organization, because they were all a part of the plan. And so I've utilized mind mapping not as the end all and the be all, but as the tool to help the various thinking processes, the various problem solving processes, the creative problem solving or solutions to it. And that's what I've been doing and what I want to share with each and every one of you, because it makes a whole difference in how well you absorb information, how well you communicate that information, how well you can utilize that information in your day-to-day business activities. So what we've done is we've taken out of our online Maximum Memory Mastery online course, we've taken one of the nuggets in that 10-module curriculum, and we've distilled it into 5-minute bite-sized pieces, so that if you could just take 5 minutes for the next 5 days, you will have one of the most powerful tools that at least I've ever seen in my years and years of experience in studying and researching human intelligence and creativity. You will have at your disposal one of the most basic and simplest tools possible that you could learn in 25 minutes. What we've done is we've got these broken into 5-minute segments. I've already told you that. And we give you some 15 minutes of practice exercises at the end of each of those modules, so that at the end of a 5-session period of time, you will have 25 minutes of education, followed within each segment a 15-minute practice ability that now makes you much more proficient. And so what I promise you, that in 25 minutes, you will be able to communicate your messages much more effectively and much more powerfully, so that it's retained by the people that need to hear it and execute on it. They will then engage in much more of their own ownership, buy-in, and creative problem solving. So you now have the direction and the action plans necessary to move the agenda forward and focus on your business plans and focus on your strategies, so that they're not just plans laying off to the side somewhere, but they're actually actionable to where people are now buying into it. People will see the big picture. They'll see the big picture of how all these parts come together, how each of these pieces fit into the holistic part of things. You'll have a recording device of how you listen to things, how you'll read things. In fact, one of the things I found out is I was able to increase my reading speed by 3-fold by learning how to take key thoughts and key ideas and put them onto a piece of paper in a way that facilitated my retention and my ability to recall and utilize that information. And you know what the good news about this whole process is? It's only $7. Who listening to this today that's got stacks of papers, looking to engage frontline people, leadership levels at all parts of the organization, at all tiers of the organization, wouldn't want to have more people bringing solutions to the table than just the problems? Who wouldn't want to be able to absorb things in meetings and understand what's going on in the meetings and look at what I call key thoughts and what key ideas or key words are that are being discussed in those meetings, and be able to synthesize that in a much more powerful way so it's much more usable, who wouldn't want to do that for $7? So I encourage you now to hit on the link and start to learn how you can personally manage your information overload, or the information that you're being given through all these various sources of how you communicate with obtaining learning and information today, and utilize it to your benefit. Click on it right now, and I look forward to hearing your success story and how you've made a difference in your organization in mobilizing the whole team to working towards common outcomes and goals.